All right, everyone. Thanks for listening to the Western Hunting Hub podcast. And in this episode, we have Dylan from OnX. Again, we've had him on before a couple times and has really walked us through quite a bit of the OnX features and some different things. This episode, we're kind of talking a little bit of some hunting, a little bit of OnX, a little bit of some of their new tools. Some good stories in there and some things that we had learned from our season. Prior to recording this, I hadn't listened to or watched the episodes that Dylan refers to on YouTube, and I've now since gone and watched those on YouTube, watching him and the Huntin crew going on some hunts, or a hunt on the Kodiak for a lot of cross fox they were hunting, which is kind of cool, and then also hunting blacktail. So that was kind of a cool kind of real hunt. I could see myself and a few guys having a very similar hunt, look kind of just a average dude's kind of hunt. And so that was kind of cool to see, where guys were going out working hard and shooting probably what I would come home with, just some average bucks. So that was pretty neat, and kind of cool to see them get excited about going and shooting fox. When you're going to Alaska, and I totally would be the guy that would be getting excited about shooting some fox as well. So that was pretty neat little thing that in that episode, or in those episodes, because there was many. But we'll get Dylan on again in the future. We'll talk just some hunting, and if you guys have questions for him at all or OnX, please share those and let me know what you think. So here's Dylan Dawson with OnX. All right, Dylan, thanks for jumping on a third time with us from OnX, and we appreciate all the info you've given us in the past on how to use our OnX to the fullest, and really learning some of those features, map tools, all the layers. I've definitely learned a lot, and now that I've got a full season under my belt with those, I found some really cool stuff, and even some of those layers put me on some new properties, like the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation pieces of property that don't show up really on any hunting atlas necessarily, or some of those things. So that's it's definitely helped for sure. So appreciate having you.
Yeah, no, thanks for having me back. I know it's been a little while since we were able to sit down and chat. Quite a bit has changed since then. First and foremost, how did your season end up going?
Really good. Had a amazing time in the backcountry archery elk hunting in Colorado. Got on the bulls right away. Had 5 bulls within archery, or within 30 yards or so within the first day and a half. And
wow.
I was in a little pocket, and it was, even though that was September 1st and 2nd, they were talking. It was beautiful. I was one of 2 guys in this little spot that we've got, and it was great. And then it shut off. So I think and I now am sold on a couple of things that are going to really help in the future. Ultimate Predator decoys are the bow mounted thing.
Yeah, I have one of those. I tested it out this year for the first time. You're talking about the ones with, I know it is, where it's got the hole in the middle, so you kind of shoot through the center of it.
Yeah, I bought one of those it's a whitetail one for South Dakota, and I got it just a little too late. That would have killed me a deer here too, but I was hunting by myself, and I know they were hanging up because I didn't see anything, and I couldn't call, and I'm just getting pinned down, and I know that I could have had something present a shot. And then when my buddy got in there, it shut down, and Colorado had that 14 inches of snow in the beginning of September, and then they just never came back alive. And it was like, well, now that was my 7-day hunt. But ended up at the end of the season getting a nice little young raghorn bull that my buddy called in. We used a bunch of Remy Warren's tactics and put up like 3 Montana decoys and tried to pull these bulls off a private, and we pulled one of the small bulls off and made a nice shot on him. And
nice.
got a really cool antelope in eastern Colorado. He's got his 13-inch goat, but his one horn lays way down to the right and is all goofy. So without OnX, I never would have got that for sure because it was all private. So I was driving around using white pages and some weird app to get people's information and their phone numbers, and
Yep.
looking at finding the name on OnX, and then just like calling these people in California, Illinois, wherever they lived, and got on there, and then had a good hunt. Also in eastern Colorado for plains mule deer. So those are the three I was successful on. But you've had quite a year. I know that for sure. As far as getting married, and you shot a stellar bull in the last year, and probably another one yet this year. And you were in Alaska too, I think. And
yeah, it was a busy year for sure. Another great season as far as just number of hunts and tags I punched. It was probably my best season in that standpoint. Started off kind of exactly the same as your elk season, honestly. Opening day here in Montana, super early in September. You always go out and you dream of getting into a rut fest right off the bat, but it's like, we'll go, maybe hear a few bulls sound off, starting to stretch the vocal cords and, get going with the rut. But I was with a buddy who actually filled his tag, shot a nice 6-point within the first 15 minutes of light.
Oh, wow.
And I got an inReach message from him. I was in the next drainage over, so I actually hiked up and over to go help him recover and pack his bull out. And in doing so, I walked into 7 bulls just going absolutely crazy. So it's kind of the same, and actually I screwed up an opportunity on opening morning on a bull. Should have had him, but it didn't quite work out. But, I kind of chuckle as you mentioned that decoy, having that for a few of those times, because after that hunt, the next couple of weeks I hunted solo a few times, and I called in 3 different bulls. I think it was that would, I was calling them in some open-ish timber where you could see them from about 80 yards to 100 yards and they could see you. And that's what happened exactly every time. I would be calling, look up, and a bull standing there at 80 yards just staring right my direction. And I wasn't utilizing that decoy the way that I should. It's new to me this year, and I had it on my pack for certain situations, but I wasn't putting it up every calling sequence. And there's a few of those times where I was kicking myself because that bull was staring right at me, and if he would have had something to look at, I think he would have came in another 30-40 yards and presented himself. But I ended up shooting a bull, smaller 5-point this year, and then went up to Kodiak with the Huntin guys, and went and did a Kodiak Sitka blacktail hunt. So we were up there for about a week and a half, did some fishing and then some hunting. It was incredible. First time I've ever been to Alaska. So
yeah,
it was pretty surreal, just kind of soaking it all in. And I can't wait to get back up there. It's amazing. And then, I came back and finished it off with Montana mule deer, and had a few other hunts in between, a few bear hunts, one in Washington, one here in Montana. It was a busy year, but a great one.
No kidding. Yeah, that's a hunt of a lifetime going up there to Alaska. I will do it at some point. I just don't know my approach yet as to if you want to go up there and kind of fish first and then just check out the area and then come back another time on a hunt. Or
what we did, I'll just give a real quick brief overview of what we did, and feel free to yourself or anybody listening. It's all documented on the Hush channel, Hush and YouTube, under the Kodiak series. But we went up, flew into Anchorage, and then we drove to Homer, which is, I think it was about 3 hours or so. We fished for 2 days, and then we drove back to Anchorage, flew from there to Kodiak. So when we were on Kodiak, we were just pretty much hunting. A few guys wet a line here or there. But since we were able to fish for 2 days and kind of get that out of our system, the whole week in Kodiak was dedicated to hunting. And I would really recommend it. You're there a couple more days, so it could be a little bit more expensive in the sense of if you're doing motel rooms for a few nights or something in Homer. And then obviously you've got the boat charter for fishing. But, going into this, I think I found out that I was going to Kodiak like 3 months prior to us leaving. It was, kind of a work opportunity that came up. But prior to that, it was one of those, I've always wanted to get to Alaska. I knew I would get to Alaska, but it was like, seemed like the barrier of entry was just almost too big. So, in my mind, back of my mind, I'm thinking, well, within the next, 5 to 10 years, I'll get to Alaska. I'll figure it out. Well, like you said, I got married last year. We've got one on the way this year, and just life never really
it doesn't slow down.
And it doesn't slow down. So my recommendation to anybody, and you too, would just be do it. Once we went up and did it, like the logistics and the planning and even the expenses, it's not near as bad as one thinks, really. And having went and done it, in my mind, I'm like, why didn't I do this, 3-4 years ago? Because it's not as challenging as I was making it out to be. The biggest barrier of entry would be the cost, but something like a Sitka blacktail on Kodiak, it's not near what the expense is for some of those other hunts. So yeah, it was easier than I expected. And I cannot wait to get up there and do it again. It was a blast.
Yeah, now, when I first started talking about it, that was before they doubled the price of non-resident tags. So missed that opportunity. And then right now, I don't know about airline flights if they're still, but it was cheap as dirt to fly anywhere. So I don't know if that's still the case. I haven't looked at them in a while, but it was. See,
and as for the cost breakdown, the Hush guys did a really good job. We actually just did a podcast with them with the boat captain where we talked about logistics and pricing and everything, but they actually threw together a spreadsheet, I'm pretty sure, for costs and everything. So you could find that there. But yeah, it was manageable for sure, price wise, and just an incredible trip. First time I've ever hunted blacktail too, which those are a very, very interesting deer to hunt. It was pretty cool.
Huh. Yeah, I'll have to, like we were saying before we hit record, is we're both getting behind on our podcasts. I'm making my way through YouTube as well, and definitely have subscribed with Hush and I'll have to go check that episode. I'm behind on that one as well. Working my way through John Dudley's series of stuff. There's just so much good content on there that I don't even want TV or anything. I just YouTube's good enough. It's got all this stuff, and yes, I'm behind on news. I don't have a clue what's going on in the world, but I know what's going on in the hunting world.
Yeah, I haven't had TV in a few years too, so I'm kind of a podcast and YouTube type of person as well, so I don't blame you.
Yeah, and on those decoys, I'll tell you what, if you're looking into any whitetail or a mule deer one, the mule deer look at the whitetail decoy just a little differently. So you definitely, I had some mule deer does kind of looking at it like, I don't like that at all. And really? I had a whitetail buck that just stared me down forever and ever and ever. Like, I know he would have taken off had I not had that decoy. So I know in western South Dakota here, where we have a mix of whitetail and mule deer, the whitetail are a touch more aggressive, and they can be outcompete a little bit some of those mule deer. So the mule deer kind of get pushed out of areas or whatnot. So I think that's that same kind of. Sometimes you see them running together like nothing, but they just looked at it different. Like, don't come too close.
Interesting.
To me. Yeah,
that's a good tip. I met Danny Ferris, I believe is his name, with excuse me, with that company a couple of years ago at a trade show, I think out in Portland. But I think I've got the cow elk one, the whitetail one that you can convert to a whitetail buck, and the antelope one. I was really excited to use the antelope one this past season, but I ended up not drawing a tag here in Montana for the first time in a long time. They didn't have any leftover tags, so I put in for rifle, didn't draw the rifle tag like I expected, and then I was going to buy a leftover, but they ran out of those. So I didn't get to use the antelope one. But yeah, I'm excited to put those things to the test and, rely on them a little bit more. I think I was a little hesitant this year to use them with some of the elk hunts. But I had it on my backpack, and I'm going to start using it. And I've heard nothing but great things about them.
Yeah. I used just a Montana with my antelope this year, and it was a rifle season, so I was a little nervous, but I was on some private, but just kind of picked it up, flashed it, and I put it down for a little bit, and the wind was howling, and I was looking back. I had antelope on 3 sides of me, and I looked back and at these ones coming, and then looked forward. It's like, oh shoot, that big buck's coming. He's coming to run me off. Holy crap, he's coming in. and I trying to hold that big broadside Montana decoy, my bipod, my rifle. He ran into like 80, under 100 yards, maybe 80, and I had a hard time pulling the trigger because that decoy was moving me, and I was like, this is 80 yards. This is a chip shot. And I backed off of the trigger like 3 times and finally just settled in. And if it weren't for having like a light Timney trigger on my .6, I wouldn't have shot. And it finally just like surprised me, shot, and he dropped right there. It was super cool. Nobody saw it except me. But
yeah, no, I know those big ones can become wind sails sometimes. And I've used even the elk ones, the Montana decoy. I've had some success calling by myself, setting up a cow decoy, and I've had a bull come in, right to 20 yards and basically smell the dang thing. He did seem a little confused when he walked beside it, and it went from 3D to 2D, and he couldn't see it for a second. But he was a younger bull, thankfully, and not quite as old and wise as some of the other ones I was trying to get in. So it ended up working out. But yeah.
Well, so I brought you on not to talk about decoys, but to talk about OnX. It doesn't matter. Dre and I have been talking about for this kind of off season, talking about getting more hunting stories in too, as well, just to keep people hyped up for the season. So that fit perfectly. But
for sure,
OnX has a couple of new things in the works that I see are out there, and the timing is good. And so before we jump into those, I think it'd be valuable to know that there's the member benefits chunk to before you log into anything on the OnX page. I did that last night. I was clicking in there, and you can click, and there's member benefits there. What's there?
Yeah, so the Elite member benefits is it's a relatively new program, and we started it for a few different reasons, but really to give the Elite members, just more value, more, whether it be a platform that we give free access to that we'll dive into here in a second for the 2 main ones there, but some discounts with some of the industry companies that we at OnX work with, and then a lot of them that our ambassadors throughout the industry work with as well. So, it's for the Elite members. And if anybody, is new to OnX, we've got 2 membership levels. There's the premium, which gives you a single state membership. So your state of choosing, you'll be able to see on your phone when you download the app, the private public land boundaries, the game management units, as you said earlier on, tidbits of information like where the Rocky Mountain Elk Foundation access layer is, and just all sorts of different stuff for a single state. The Elite membership is essentially the same thing, but for all 50 states. So you've got nationwide coverage for property bound owners, the landowner's name, tax address, all the public lands are broken out to state, BLM, forest, etc. All that we have to offer for all 50 states. But now on top of that is this Elite member benefits. So if you log in with your email address that you have the Elite account for, now you can get discounts to like Vortex Optics. There's a handful of different company ones in there, but the 2 main ones that we'll probably chat through today is we're actually giving free access. So it's not a discount. It's completely free access to both Huntin Fool and TOPRUT. So for Huntin Fool, it's their digital membership, and then TOPRUT, it's their peak membership. And kind of if people aren't familiar there, so Huntin Fool has everything research and planning in the Western Key states. So they've got an online e-magazine that every month they're putting in, relevant data per timeline. So if Montana's draw application deadline is say next month, this month and the months prior leading up to it would be jam-packed full of helpful information for Montana, any changes this year, what people should know, a lot of really good insight information in that. It's not just another hunting magazine. They do have some really cool stories in there. So, in that aspect, there's lots of good stories and pictures and stuff to keep people entertained, but it's jam-packed full of super helpful information that you're not going to find anywhere else. And then they do a lot with application research. They have a tag holder list, a previous tag holder list. So if I draw an out-of-state tag in, say, Wyoming, and I'm not familiar with the unit, never stepped foot there, I need to start e-scouting and planning. Well, through Huntin Fool, I can get access to a previous tag holder list for that same unit. And I can reach out to folks that have had that tag, see what their experiences are, see if they have any information they're willing to share, where to camp or not to camp, etc. So there's a lot more that goes into the Huntin Fool digital membership that we can dive into, but that's kind of a brief overview of a few of the main things with it. And then TOPRUT is another program that we're offering the free membership to with the elite membership. And that one is more centered around draw odds and filtering. So, for different Western states, I can look and see what my draw odds are in Colorado for mule deer for select units with 3 points, and so on and so forth there. You can do some advanced filtering with that system. And they have a lot of hunting stats. So, harvest stats from previous years to help you figure out where you want to apply. So really with OnX, Huntin Fool, and TOPRUT now, especially in these application seasons in the springtime, winter and springtime here, I'm using all three of those. OnX to look up the game management units and visually see, where the private public is, see how much public is in a unit, my type of hunting. So if I'm the type of hunter who wants to hike in, 4 or 5 miles and set up a base camp, I'm going to be looking at different units that have a lot of, road access and stuff. So I'm using OnX for that, Huntin Fool for the research end of it, and then TOPRUT to figure out my draws.
Yeah, and like you were saying, now's a really good time to get rolling with that. I screenshotted Huntin Fool and posted that 2 days ago as I'm almost late to the game already. And I had it in the back of my mind what I wanted to be doing over this next year, but now it's go time. I really gotta figure this out, because March 8th or so in Colorado, somewhere in there, I know applications open and they're due April 6th. A lot of states have really early. You guys have a really early elk, right? Tag that you gotta.
So we're,
or your application.
it used to be like March 15th. It's now April 1st for elk and deer.
Okay.
So it's not too bad, but and I know that off the top of my head, because we're actually working right now with Huntin Fool on creating a blog and an email to convey all of these application deadlines. There's a lot of information here. And if you had to go to each specific state agency and, do the research yourself, it's challenging enough to go from state to state, a Montana Fish, Wildlife, and Parks to a Wyoming, to a Colorado, to an Idaho, and even be able to navigate their websites, because they're all so different, that anywhere like this with Huntin Fool, where they do all that research for you, they'll compile all the dates, throw all the links in, and just put it in one easy to read place. And so we're working with Huntin Fool to basically mirror the work that they did there on our channel. So we'll send out an email and create a blog with kind of an easy to read table, if you will, for each state and species and the deadline. Because I know a lot of guys, I've been the guy who's missed an application deadline that I was, planning on putting in for, and then you get busy and life comes up, and all of a sudden you're like, oh no, I missed Wyoming elk draw or application. So we're working on that right now. But places like Huntin Fool, it's super helpful. I mean, they're kind of doing what we do at OnX for the mapping, I mean, as far as the private lands, yeah, sure, you could go down to your courthouse and, look through plat books and figure out who owns what, but it's going to take hours and hours of your time and research, and then you're still not going to be able to see, where you're at on the map in relation to those boundaries. So, we compile all that, we do all the heavy lifting, and then just provide it to folks with the app. So in a sense, they're kind of doing something similar, but for all this information that's out there.
Yeah, I do love to dive into even using some of these. I do love to still go into to look even further into some of their deep down stats and whatever else. But for getting the start and to get some of the, even to help narrow down, I'm excited to try and use these to figure out what I'm going to be doing, because I did miss an application already, period, here in South Dakota. Yeah, but it wasn't my fault, because I moved here November 24th. It's 90 days before you're a resident, which is really good. It's only 3 months. And I got my driver's license yesterday. So that puts me at 93 days. So today I could apply, and I missed the spring turkey application, which was last week, and paddlefish. Paddlefish is like, I freaking love paddlefish fishing. It's so much fun.
Yeah. I grew up in eastern Montana, in Glendive, actually. And I don't quote me on this, but it's always been referred to as paddlefish capital of the world, right north of Glendive there. I don't know if that's a trademark that we hung on to, or if it is in fact one of the better places to go paddle fishing. But growing up, we would go paddle fish out of the Yellowstone there.
Oh, cool.
I'm in western Montana now, in Missoula. I moved out here when I started working for OnX, and haven't actually been back to paddlefish since. But yeah, I'm very familiar.
Yeah, the Missouri has some amazing fishing, and on the Nebraska South Dakota border, it's not bad, but it's fished a lot, and they're not quite as big. It's hard to find one in the slot, because you can only keep one in a certain slot. And then there's a resident only season further up the river that I got to do it the very first year there was a season, and I was super pumped to pull out a 63 pounder, which in now that is nothing. I mean, there's guys catching some 99. I think the state record's 136-ish, somewhere in there.
Yeah.
Big.
Yeah, there's always a couple giants getting caught.
Yeah, that's unreal. So, go ahead.
I've caught a couple in the 60, 70, but the best one I caught like a 23 pounder, but I hooked it in the back of the tail. That thing fought like it was 180 pounds. I swore that was going to be a state record, and it came in with just a little guy.
I always refer to them. It's like setting the hook on it, because you snag them, and it's usually setting the hook on on a rock, but the rock pulls back. That's what it totally feels like, and it's just pulling and pulling, and your obliques are done for the day afterwards, and the next day is kind of painful unless you prepped for it.
Yeah.
So I actually have never used a program before to research my tags and everything, and that's just one, because I'm a cheapo, but also I haven't really hunted many other states until now. I'm branching out some more to about 3 states a year, and at least applying for, and so I'm a noob, just like a lot of everybody else, and really now I'm excited about having this elite membership. It was really nice having it. I liked it because I drive through Wyoming. Oh, let me check on what that is, where that's at. It was really nice, but now there's other features that go along with it, so I can see for sure, strategy-wise, marketing-wise, why you guys are offering that as a heck yeah. That's all I want now is the elite membership with these other benefits. So that's a good strategy. the,
Yeah.
the
And, I'm kind of in the same boat. I was born and raised in Montana, and I've never moved out. So Montana right now, we just have so much opportunity for long seasons, for multiple, we can hunt so many different species in Montana as a resident. And, it's easy. So for the longest time, I didn't even think about applying for out of state tags. And even now, sometimes it's, until I shoot my bull in Montana, why go to Idaho type situation. So, I'm in kind of the same boat, but the more that even for those guys, what I'm getting at is the more that I've looked into both TOPRUT and Huntin Fool, and I know a couple guys at Huntin Fool that are extremely knowledgeable, even in their home state, and they're pulling, moose, sheep, and goat tags pretty consistently. I mean, way more consistently than other folks, for themselves and their kids and stuff. And it's like, there's got to be more to it. So even in your home state, there's a lot more. What I'm finding out is there's a lot more that a person can do for strategy, for like applications. You can put in for the same unit for moose, sheep, or goat and never draw it. But if you stay up to speed on some of the changes and look at the draw odds by using TOPRUT, and you might only be going from 0.5% to 1.2%, but in the grand scheme of things, you've got a lot better odds there. So that's kind of what I've been finding is using both TOPRUT and Huntin Fool, even in my home state of Montana. I can be a lot more strategic and get a lot more out of it than what I typically have been doing. It was an eye opener for sure.
I would echo that for sure. Just straight up doing research. And I always have those conversations with the one season hunters or people that don't quite hunt as much as me, or they don't dive into it as much. And there's a lot of folks that I've chatted with that complain about, I didn't draw, this is bull crap, I haven't drawn in 3 years. Like, well, that's on you mostly. Or you should almost, in Colorado, a true preference point state, minus the moose, goat, sheep, which is different. You should know for the most part, or if you at least have a chance. And then on top of that, through doing some more research, you can find tags. You can find leftovers that are I've shot great animals on leftover tags. You can find those good things, and I'm just speaking one state. Wyoming and Montana are, I'm sure, the same, and doing more than just they got their primary draw and secondary draw in Colorado, utilizing that and utilizing leftover lists and really diving into the stats for sure can increase your opportunity. And I hate it to see. I picked up a tag off of the leftover list here, which was a really good pick. It took somebody 3 points to draw it, and it got reissued. And I picked it up off the leftover list because I was quick about it. Couple of non-residents dropped 19 points on that tag, 19 and 17 points, and I picked it up off the leftover. And it's like, wow, you just wasted 19 years of points, which that's tag, a lot of money. Oh yeah, and that tag normally would be like a 6, 7, 8 point tag. Why on earth would you go there and waste 19 points when you could have went and hunted in like the Gunnison Basin somewhere and had a really great hunt? I just drives me nuts, and you never know their story as what's happening in their life, but yeah, that hurts.
It's like we were talking about, life is busy. There's a lot of things going on, and sometimes it's really hard to keep up on all of those changes and stuff. And even as simple as I've been applying for moose, sheep, and goat in Montana, dreaming of drawing that once in a lifetime tag. Well, if I'm up on my end of things and I know a certain unit just added one more goat tag in it this year because population is doing good, if a lot of other guys don't know that and I apply for that unit, even though it's one extra, tag they're giving out, that just spiked my odds by a lot. So certain things like that, it's hard to keep up on and know every little ins and outs of every unit, and the changes and everything. But honestly, that's why having the digital membership for Huntin Fool and the information through TOPRUT for your draw odds for those units, it's crucial, because then you don't really, yes, it's still great to do your own research and, read up on things and be as well versed as you can be, but they're doing so much of that legwork, and they're giving their members that information that, if that's all you have, like, you're going to be so much farther ahead of the rest of the population when you go to submit applications and stuff. And yeah, it's pretty incredible. And, from OnX's standpoint, it's something that we have realized our users, or a good percentage of our users would utilize for quite a while now. And, we started looking into it, and it's like, well, instead of us, pulling resources away from doing what we do as far as the mapping side of it goes, and learning and, looking at creating some of this stuff ourselves, let's just partner with, the best in the business for the research end of it and for the draw odds, and then just provide it to our elite members. So it's kind of it's a win-win.
That's a big tip, knowing the changes in the allocation. And if those programs do that, that's a pretty big deal. Even if it were not an increase, but a decrease. And then,
yep.
that would be really good to know, and something I guess I'm not doing. So that's what's probably going to take me to the next level, is making sure I'm paying attention to that, knowing what the changes are. So, good tip.
I didn't know that a while ago, and I'd been applying for literally the same mountain goat unit in Montana year in and year out, because that's one of the hardest tags, so it's got to be the best hunt, right? And just kind of got stuck in my ways, and nope, this is where I apply every year. Didn't really do research. Well, a couple of years back, they cut the tag, like the number of tags that they gave out, like, substantially, and I didn't really find that out until after. And it's like, well, I mean, I already didn't have a chance going into it, but especially with them cutting the tags, like, that was just a waste of money, really, to not necessarily money, because as a resident you get it back, but waste of a year applying for that unit, not knowing that they had cut the tags back. So yeah, I've kind of been trying to keep up on that as much as possible. Or they create a whole new unit for something. A lot of the times the first year or so, a lot of people don't know about those things. So, if you can get a leg up that way, you might get, draw something with far less points than you should have, just because you're well versed and researched in, new game management units and stuff.
There's a unit I know of for sure in Colorado for goat that I was watching and doing all my research on, and noticed that some years it was 100%. One year it was 100%, and then most years it was 0%. So if you didn't know for success, I mean, so if you didn't know that success rate, and you were just kind of going off of draw odds and everything there, in diving into those stats, that would probably be one of those really disappointing hunts, because you just cannot find goats. And I think that specific unit was so weather dependent, based on what was happening, where you couldn't access where those goats are, or whatever the scenario is. I never went and checked it out, but that whole unit I just scratched off my list and said that's way too dependent on too many things. It's an easier tag to draw, but there's a reason for it. So that was not a hunt that I wanted to blow points on. So knowing those stats kind of can save you points and make it the hunt, or not the hunt you want. And maybe that's the hunt someone's going for, that I know I can get into this place. So means I'm going to draw.
Some units too, I know a few folks who have drawn some bison tags here in Montana. And if you don't, if you just kind of willy-nilly apply for this bison unit, you don't realize that you need horses to be able to access it, because you have to, it's something like, I mean, I'm probably going to butcher the number, but it's something like 26 odd miles that you have to get in before you can start hunting bison.
What are you going to do 25 miles with them?
Yeah. And it's like, if you don't know that, you look and you're like, sweet, I drew a bison tag. And then you realize it's like, okay, well, now I got to hire a packer, because even just to get in there is difficult enough, let alone if you shoot a bison back in there, there's, 0% chance you're taking that thing out on your back. So, now you got to hire folks, and some people are set up for hunts like that and some aren't. So there's just a lot that goes into applications for, whether it be for moose, sheep, goat, bison, or just deer, elk, antelope, and that's where using the 3 tools, OnX for all the mapping, planning, using 3D at your house to look at the unit and everything, and then in the field mapping, and then Huntin Fool for, their e-magazine. I've got a list in front of me here for what their digital membership offers. So e-magazine, previous tag holder list that we talked about. They've got a huge list of endorsed outfitters. So if you draw a tag, or, if you're looking to go on a guided outfitted hunt, if you're going to, say, Wyoming and you want to hunt wilderness, you got to have an outfitter or be with a resident. So, they've got great list of endorsed outfitters. They do a ton of hunt giveaways, draw cost calculator. So, you can figure out roughly what the cost is going to be for some of these hunts. Lots of great information on their podcast and YouTube. And, they encompass the draw odds there as well. So really for that digital membership, you're getting a lot of different stuff. And then, so between OnX, them, and then TOPRUT for, figuring out your draw odds and your likeliness to actually draw that tag, it's kind of the whole kit.
So let's just say you don't have it planned, but you want to do a Northwest Colorado region mule deer hunt for this coming year, and that's all you got. What is your kind of steps using these tools to, in general? Obviously, we could talk about that for a day and a half, but what's your steps in general to utilizing those tools, and what would your process be through that?
For sure. So that's actually, I haven't dove into the process yet, but I do have, I think I've got I only have one Colorado point for mule deer, but I might try and do a Colorado this year. So what I would do is I would first start with probably, there's 18 different ways to go about this, but I would probably start with pulling up OnX on my computer so I can get a bigger visual, making sure the mule deer units are the game management units that are showing, just so I can visually kind of see landscape, topography, the units, because I'm not, I've never hunted Colorado. I'm not very familiar with their units. So just to kind of visually see where the units are, where the private and public is, then I'll be able to see like specific units. If they're, say, 80% private, I'm, not going to be interested there because access is going to be difficult, etc. And then I would jump in TOPRUT, log in, go to Colorado mule deer. And then the nice thing about TOPRUT too is you can, there's all sorts of different filtering options. So I would put in, okay, I've got one bonus point. You can choose your minimum draw percent. So I can slide that bar over and say, okay, I want a 50%, draw tag. Or I could go, I really want to hunt Colorado this year. Only show me the tags that are, 80% and higher for my one bonus point. I would choose the non-resident status for residency. And then you can also choose like a date range for your hunt start dates and stops. So that there you can choose a minimum percentage of public land. So if I wanted a unit that's 60% at least 60% public. I just slide that over to 60%, and then what weapon I want to do. So if I'm, wanting to do an archery hunt, I'll just select that, rifle hunt, muzzleloader hunt, etc. So with those filters, it narrows it down from a lot of different units to, maybe 3, 4, 5, whatever it is, depending on how picky you want to get, with your minimum draw odds, etc. So then I'd probably cross-reference, get the list of units, see what the draw odds are for those, and then go right back to OnX, looking at where the units are. So then I would probably mark waypoints on all of those units that showed up. So if there's 5 different units, I would throw a waypoint in the center of each one of those, just so I know visually where they're at. And honestly, just by looking at the map, especially in 3D, I'd probably be able to, kind of narrow it down. But then I would jump into Huntin Fool and see what information they have on each one of those units. And really, just dive in. You can spend hours and, as you said, days and days just on that information alone. See what units produced last year, see where, just what any and all information that they have based on those select units, and kind of just start to narrow it down. Obviously, it's huge if you know anybody personally who has, or through your connection, who has hunted, a unit before. And that's where, if you don't, Huntin Fool has that previous tag holder list. So, I could try and reach out to a few people who have drawn a few of those tags and just see if they're willing to provide any information, and just kind of go from there, narrow it down, probably figure out my best draw odds, and get that application in. So, yeah, that's, kind of a long-winded answer that could take a couple days. As you said, we could really dive into the weeds, but yeah, just kind of cross-referencing, bouncing back and forth between those 3 programs. What seems extremely daunting at first is going to be narrowed down and then narrowed down again. And then you're going to have, a few select units that you're looking at to apply for. And, as I mentioned earlier, if I'm wanting to do a backpack type hunt, or if I'm wanting to car camp, looking at OnX and the road systems and the access, it's going to become probably pretty apparent which one's going to be best.
Yeah, and I know that was a loaded question, but it and we all do things differently in how our process of starting our tag research, but just giving some of us that confidence to start digging, to know that, I think those first few steps that you give are really, really important, and I think we could all use those as a great place to start with. What's the terrain even look like? Is because you'll want to know that Northwest region is really the high desert, and if you're really wanting to do one of the high alpine early season archery deer hunts, that's not the place to go. You're going to want to hit more central Colorado, or I think Southwest area has some of that as well, but or maybe it's a plains deer that you're wanting to go after. Just doing some research or using OnX on that, you would get to see some of that terrain and realize, first off, what kind of hunt you want to have and what kind of terrain, because I think that really sets the tone, and why I chose a few prairie hunts this year. It's like, I really want to go chase some deer in the prairie. Someday, I really want to do it above tree line. Other times, I want to do it in the Black Hills, where it's just these little dinky mountain whitetails that are just fun to chase, and there's tons of them. It's just, every hunt is so different. It's like going down to Arizona to do their OTC hunt, or anyone. Yeah. There's just, I think that is a really good place to start in choosing what kind of terrain you're wanting to hunt, and then jumping into, well, do I even have a shot at the Northwest region? I'll tell you right now, you're not drawing much for the far northwest corner of Colorado, because that's definitely some of their more trophy units, but there are some tags in that region that are worth checking out. And I know that the kind of the northeastern corner of that, and throughout that whole unit, that's where the highest density of deer are in the state for mule deer. So it's that's good to know. And the trophy quality and uh, all of
Yeah,
that. Yeah.
there's so many factors that go into it, right? Like, I'm sitting here trying to figure out if I'm going to do Colorado this year, for deer. I decided not to do Wyoming for elk this year. Like I was kind of thinking about, mostly because we're starting a family this year. I'm going to have a little bit less time this fall, etc. But there's so much that goes into it. It's like, what type of buck am I looking at down there? Is it going to be an experience hunt where I just want to go down and fill a tag on a decent buck? Is that my goal? Or at the end of the day, it's like, we've got pretty good deer hunting here in Montana. When I do end up going to Wyoming or Colorado for mule deer, I'm looking for something exceptional. Because that alone, like what the trophy quality, the type of hunt you're looking for is going to dictate the units. And, you might get a tag every other year if you're just going down there and you want to hunt Colorado. But, if you're really looking for something special and something different, some guys might be okay, holding on to their Wyoming points for, 6-8+ years before applying. So yeah, there's a ton of different factors that go into it.
And now as a non-resident of Colorado, I have to strategically think about that a little bit more. And having these tools are going to be a lot more important to me now because I'm not hunting after work. I'm not going and living in the unit that I'm hunting or close by. So I'm going to not want to blow my points. I've got like 4 elk points. I don't know what I want to do with them. I do not want to wait 20 years for a great tag. There's a lot of really great things for 4 to 8 points. And I've got 3-4 deer points that I'm sitting on. And I don't think it's necessary to sit on deer points in Colorado because we just have great bucks. There's great bucks around. So now I'm at that point with a lot of my points where I need to strategize quite a bit and think about how I'm going to be using those just in time to move away from there. I need to really dive into that. And but when's the baby due?
Yeah. Oh, let's see. We are moving into a new house in April and then May. So about a month after we move into a new place, we've got a little one on the way. So May 18th is due date.
Oh, man. Yeah.
It'll be a busy spring.
Yeah. I thought that, just with family planning, I thought that maybe we'd have another one probably in that July, August, whatever. So September is like, well, I think I won't be going to Colorado this year to elk hunt. And now that's not possible. So to have a kid by then. So looks like I'm going back to Colorado to archery hunt this year. So
there you go.
I'm excited about that. And but one thing while you're chatting with these folks at Huntin Fool and TOPRUT, I did see South Dakota was on there, and I know that. And there was even some on Huntin Fool. There was some Iowa and some eastern states, but western South Dakota is west. It is so west out here. It is just like hunting a lot of portions of Wyoming and everything. So yeah, and out in the prairie, all the way to the Missouri, these rolling hills and prairie stuff. So any help there to get more data within their program there, I'd appreciate it.
No, I will. I'm actually talking to the Huntin Fool guys later this afternoon, having a meeting with them to catch up. So
cool.
Yeah, no, I agree. And being from eastern Montana, it's very similar country to that eastern Montana country. In some ways, it actually, that western South Dakota almost feels more west than eastern Montana, just because of the pines and the black hills you guys have there. It's pretty awesome country.
Yeah, I was driving up for work. I was driving up along the Belfouche River, meeting landowners, and because we're working on taking new hunters out, and the 3 R's is my mission and what I do. So meeting landowners, awesome. and the number of deer in this area we were at is just unreal. Number of deers were crazy. And I do want to plug a little thing quick that one landowner told me. He said, I wish people were not afraid to knock on doors. a landowner rancher with a ton of deer that wants a bunch of deer shot. He said, I wish people would knock on doors. Now there's a way to do it where you're not knocking on their door Thanksgiving Day, not
Yeah.
doing it during the season in your orange. But he just wishes people would reach out and say, hey, fix my fence a little bit, and he would grant permission. I know a name right now. I'm not going to share it, but
Yeah.
there's a lot of other guys out there that have tons of deer, and you may have to go get the 3 doe tags in this one area, or go shoot some does before they let you shoot a buck. But there's a lot of things out here where you can get multiple doe tags, and then you can get a buck tag on top of that. So,
Yeah.
I it's a lost art, I think, of people knocking on doors, and it's an intimidating thing for sure. Like it's a scary thing.
It can be for sure. I always kind of grew up. Well, where I grew up, there's a lot of private, a lot of ranches, and we just knew a lot of people, right? So it was pretty easy to call somebody you know for permission. But I agree with you 100%. I think it's a lost art, and I think, yeah, you might get quite a few no's, but you're gonna get more yeses than what you think, especially if you knock on the door, like you said, and you're courteous about it. You offer to help a hand if they need anything moved, or to help with fence, or anything like that. But I've been with several people, and it's that just get uncomfortable about asking permission. My theory is the worst that they're going to say is no. If you approach them respectfully and just like a decent human, you're not going to get a door. Most of the time, you're not going to get a door slammed in your face or anything. The worst that they're going to say is no, or, I've got family, or we lease, or anything like that. But I've gotten a lot of permission by knocking on doors. And honestly, since in the app we have their tax address, there's been a few times where, I can't find a house or a phone number, or nobody's home, and I'll end up just going home and writing out a letter for permission. And almost 100% of the time that I've done that, I've gotten permission. I think, sitting down and writing a handwritten letter asking permission to access through or to hunt their property, that's definitely a dying art. Nobody, not very many people these days are writing a handwritten letter. So I'm almost batting 100% for taking that approach.
That's a hot tip.
Hot tip. Yeah.
That's a pretty hot tip. So,
yeah, it works.
I'm putting together for work. I'm putting together a little series too on that so gaining some permission. We have a bounty program out here for egg eating predators like coons and skunks and everything. So that goes through the summer, and so I'm gonna document that. Go out and try to find some landowners, and not document me going up to the door. Putting a camera in their face isn't gonna go over well. But just the process of knocking on a door and seeing what happens. How many doors I got to knock on there, and I'll even add in that little letter of permission. So thanks for that little tip, because that's a good one, just to see if I can't find some permission to trap on, and who knows, maybe later I'll be shooting a big old mule deer buck off of their property.
Well, yeah, trapping and just predator hunting. If you go out and want to go call coyotes or something for something to do in the winter, most of those ranchers, especially during calving season, would welcome that with open arms, and they might not let you hunt deer or antelope or anything else. But if you show up a few times and you are courteous and offer to help, and you're coyote hunting, you build that relationship. And who knows, like you said, a couple of years down the road, not only do you have a place to go predator hunting on or whatever you want to do there, but a couple of years down the road, you might have a good enough relationship that they do open the door for something else. And the other thing too, I've knocked on doors, and I've had landowners say, I would, but last year I let a couple guys hunt, and we had some issues with our neighbor because they didn't know the property boundary. At which point I pulled up the app right away, and it's like, completely understand if you don't want to allow hunting. I just wanted to let you know, that we know exactly where we're at. I can see your property border and kind of point out on the map, if like zoom in, like, oh, over by that big oak tree over there, it looks like is the corner fence. And, I've turned that around a handful of different times. There's still a few times that they may be not using that for an excuse, but that's just their reasoning, and that's okay. But there's been a few different times I can remember where they weren't going to allow permission. And then by me pulling out the app, showing them that I know exactly where we're at and where we can and can't go, it turns it around and they actually end up granting permission. So that's always a good backup there. If a landowner has any doubts about, people knowing their boundaries or anything.
Yeah. And building that relationship is important for sure. Cause that was a complaint I heard yesterday from landowners, is that a lot of hunters will talk a big game, or the hunters from the big city coming into those areas, they talk a big game about how they are this good hunter, they can shoot straight, whatever else, but then they have issues of making bad shots on deer, crossing a fence they're not supposed to, leaving a gate open, whatever that is. So if you could prove to them through your trapping or your predator hunting or something like that, yeah, I don't drive in fields, I leave you a Christmas card, I do whatever, left you a case of beer or whatever it is, I fixed your fence, then you've proven yourself there. So it's a lot of work, but something definitely that is noticed. So you're not going to definitely go shoot someone's big old 180-inch deer that visits their haystack every once in a while. But there's some tactics there to follow. So, hour on the money is what my recording device says. So I don't want to take up any more of your time, and I appreciate you so much in sharing that. I've learned a lot. Wrote a couple of notes for myself with big old stars around it to help me do a couple of things to better my situation. So, good luck to you in your draws and as being a new dad. That's exciting stuff, and definitely will change your life for the better for sure.
Thank you. Yeah, no, I appreciate having me on. We'll have to just plan another one here soon and keep it rolling. And then I'm also gonna keep in touch with you on that Colorado mule deer. As you definitely have some more insight there for a guy with 1 point that's looking at it. So we'll have to chat here soon and look at what you're doing, and who knows, even maybe end up on a hunt one of these days.
That'd be good. All right, Dylan. Well, have a good day and a good rest of your week.
Thank you very much.
This is God's country.